Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. Dan Miller here, and we are off to the races. Before I get too far into the workshop this evening, if someone would go online and text in the comment section that you can hear me, that'll make this a lot more fun from the get go. So I'm just going to hang here and not go too far down the road. I could just get one of you. See some people on online for sure. So if one of you could just jump in and say, "Hey, you can hear me," that would be awesome. Come on, folks, help me out. There we go. That's what I love to hear. Great. Thank you very much. If we can handle that in the first minute or so, then we're good to go. So, welcome everyone to our next workshop. It's our third in our three-part series of fighting the comorbidities of COVID-19. And tonight we're talking about the struggle with diabetes and obesity. I lump those together because they really go hand in hand. And so you'll find as we go through this discussion tonight that there's a lot of commonalities between the two topics. And I really kind of just link them together after a few slides because there's enough similarities in how we manage it that it just seemed logical to do that. Many of you know that I've been in practice for, well, I guess it'll be going on 29 years here in March. And so this is really a component of our practice that we feel is critical to helping people really achieve the best overall health as possible. So we'll talk about it as we go through the night. And so let's just jump into this. Um, as we continue on here, the reason we're doing these workshops on COVID in the first place is that what we're reading in the research is that most of the people that are dying of COVID, or maybe I should better say with COVID, have at least 2.6 other morbidities: heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, diabetes, obesity. And so we really feel it's critical that we give people information about how they can minimize the risk by working on those conditions. And so just simply when we talk about diabetes, it's one of the top 10 killers of people in the United States today. It is number 7. Last month we talked about cancer, number 2, and the month before that, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, that was number 1. And so these are probably the 3 most common issues: diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And so that's why we started with them. We're going to take the month of December off from workshops, but once we jump back into January, we're going to hit the basics. And so we're going to go through specifically a workshop on nutrition, another workshop on exercise. And so be watching our website, be watching our Facebook page for more updating information for that. But we just find that this is sad. In fact, as we just look at the numbers with regards to diabetes, what we know is that there are over 30 million people, and this is of 2017, so I'm suspecting that this number is definitely a lot higher. The sad part is that 1 in 4 people that have diabetes have no clue. One of the things that we talk about a lot in our office is that diabetes really typically has no symptom. So you don't wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, I think I have diabetes." It's something that we sometimes rule out as time goes on by looking at other symptoms, and then we do the testing. We don't do a lot of testing specifically for diabetes. There are a number of people that are pre-diabetic, which means they're on that borderline. If you do the lab work and we're checking the numbers, that they may not be quite quote unquote diabetic, but they may have a tendency towards that. So again, lifestyle changes can have a big influence for those folks as well. And then again, just we all know that with diabetes, things like heart disease, kidney failure, eyesight, even loss of limb can be an issue. And so really being aware of, if you have diabetes, what can you do to minimize your risk of some of these complicating factors of diabetes? And then number 2, if you have diabetes, how can we minimize maybe even its effect on you in the first place? More of a discussion with type 2 diabetes, but even with type 1 diabetes, there's some things that you can do to lower your risk of some of the things. The big thing I want to point out here, $245 billion is the cost. And I thought I saw a number in doing my research here. It may be almost closer to $350 billion since then, when you consider some of the other associated costs that go along with this and other health related issues that are not necessarily diabetes related, but are because you have diabetes are set up for, or you're set up for. When we look at what the CDC tells us, and this is right off their website, look in the green down there at the bottom. Type 2 diabetes can be prevented or delayed with healthy lifestyle changes, such as losing weight, eating healthy food, and being active. And I put that in there and I've highlighted and emphasized it because a lot of people feel that when they get a diagnosis of diabetes, that they have to own that as an identity. I have a lot of patients that walk in the office and say, "I am a diabetic," and the reality is that you're a person who has diabetes. And so I want to be very careful. It's not a life sentence. It's a diagnosis. It's information, which means you have some power. And this is from the CDC. You have some power about how much, to a certain degree, you have to process that diagnosis, and you also have some control over how you move forward in the future. And so this is really the discussion we're going to have tonight. And it says also prevented or delayed. So again, people have prediabetes. We can delay that with some of the choices we're going to make. This next graph is really tying together the diabetes concept and obesity. And you might find me saying diabesity just because I've thrown them together so many times so often. So when we look at the diabetes trends from 1994 to 2015, definitely seeing an increase across the nation, especially even in Oregon. We're going from maybe less than 4.5% of the Oregon population to now over 9% of the population. And you can see that's the higher numbers throughout the country. And then when you look at obesity, we're seeing that in Oregon, again, that we've gone from anywhere from 4 to 17%, 18% to over 26% in 2015. In fact, the numbers that I've seen for 2019 put us closer to 30% and beyond. And when we look at the nation as a whole, we're looking at over 42% of our adult population, are in the obese category. And so we need to really look at what we can do as a nation to minimize that issue, because as we just saw in the last slide, there's a lot that we can do based on our lifestyle choices that can minimize that risk. And so, if nothing else, I hope that you leave our discussion tonight being empowered. If you have diabetes, that there are things that you can do right now that can help your body function better, be healthier, and minimize the damaging effects that diabetes itself has. And then again, lower your risk of some of the negative effects that can happen if, God forbid, you do get COVID as well. Here's some of the numbers again back on obesity. I almost said diabetes. So again, we're looking at the country here again, 2011, and just let's look at the trend here. 2015, most of the nation continues to get worse. Oregon dropped down a little bit below 30 at that point, but you see the general trend here. And then we look at the numbers for obesity, just like we did for diabetes. Again, 42.4% of the population from 2007 in 2017, 2018 had diabetes, and so, or I'm sorry, had obesity. I knew I was going to do that. And so we have to just really realize that this is an issue that we have control over. So let's put this in perspective. Over 70% of our population are overweight, including diabetes, including obesity. And so the vast majority of our population in the United States have issues with weight. And so we'll talk. Well, I guess one of the things that is causing that, there's some research that looks at the 1970s, 1980s, and how people were eating similar amount of calories and exercising similar to people today. But today, people can't lose weight as well as they did before. So they're doing the same thing, same type of activity, similar types of foods. And so the concern that they're finding then is that it's the stress levels that we're dealing with in our culture these days, and also the toxicities. We do a lot of workshops when we talk about toxicity in our office, and we realize that if the body is exposed to lots of toxins, the body will protect itself by storing those toxins in the fat. Well, the body then says, listen, if I've got fat in the body that has toxins in it, and you're exercising to burn the fat, realize if we do that, we're releasing those toxins back into the body, and it's going to have a worse effect on the body than being overweight. So the body struggles for that. And so we have to understand that, yes, we need to look at what we eat. We need to look at how we move. We also need to consider our environment and the toxicities. And if we've been exposed to lots of toxins, and how can we not? I mean, we just went through some of the worst air quality in the world just this summer with the forest fires all around the state. And so we know that we've been affected by toxins. And so we have to have a plan to deal with that as well. So everyone's blaming COVID for their weight gain. And, we call it the COVID-15, the COVID-19, whatever it is. But what we're also finding too is we're moving into the holidays. Now, if we think about it, holidays are Thanksgiving, Christmas, where's my hand here? New Year's Eve, maybe Christmas Eve. So maybe 4 or 5 days that we have. But we call it the holidays, but we really treat it like the months. And so what ends up happening is that we just say, well, Thanksgiving, what the heck? I'm just going to eat until January, and then I'm going to change how everything's going. So what we have to be very careful of is those choices. Now, we don't know what Thanksgiving is really going to look like this year. We have some ideas, and many parts of the state are just, they're limiting it just to their immediate households. We don't know what Christmas looks like. We don't know what our work environments look like, and I get that. And so then we're back to the stress thing, right? But regardless of where that goes, that sometimes being home and being alone even makes it more difficult. It's like we tend to binge eat, or we spend all the time eating, we don't talk, and so that can be a problem. And what we tend to find is that during the holidays, people tend to gain about a pound a year, sometimes two. But those that are already overweight have a tendency to gain as much as 7 to 10 pounds. And the research shows that it's rare that you lose all of that. And so let's think about this. If we consider how active we are in our 20s and then we bump into the 30s, let's say that's the magic line, and I'm making that up here. But from 30 to 40, that could be an extra 5 to 10 pounds that we've gained. 40 to 50, another 5 to 10 pounds, or maybe 7 to 10 pounds. If we're holding on to a pound, we start going, why don't I weigh so much? It's like, well, it's been a progression of just overeating, less of activity, increased stress, more environmental toxins, and and so we need to take a step now. I always like to challenge patients this time of year. Can you maintain your weight? Not necessarily lose, but if you can maintain your weight during the holidays or the whole months, makes it a lot easier when you roll into January to be able to then make the changes in the lifestyle and then put that better effort into how you eat, how you exercise, and really look in overall fitness at that point as well. So the big question is, so how do we fix this, right? So I think that it's obvious diabetes is a problem, obesity is a problem, lots of health issues are. And so I have a friend of mine in the area, medical doctor, Dr. Miles Hassel, and I encourage you, if you're looking for a medical doctor, a great guy to go to. But he has on his website a guideline for how to deal with diabetes. And so again, I'm lumping diabetes and obesity together, but understand that these concepts work well for everyone. And there's a lot of information here, and I could probably spend a class on almost each slide. But there's 21 different points that he's going to talk about. Now he and his sister have written a nutrition book basically based on the Mediterranean diet. Fun read, lots of good recipes. It's called Good Food, Great Medicine. And so look it up. Great gift for Christmas if you want, for yourself, for friends. But we talk a lot in the office about sugar. So reducing your sweet tooth, really watching what you're putting in your body. In fact, when we talk about weight in and of itself, I really feel about 80% of managing your weight is what you eat. Now, I always like to point out there are two types of things that we put in our body: food and junk. It's not junk food and health food. It's either food or junk. Think about it. If you go to the grocery store and they have a health food section, what does that make the rest of the food? A little trivia there you can share with your friends that you're gathering when you're Zooming over Thanksgiving. Liquid calories, so soda pop. But also think about those fancy drinks you can get at the coffee shop. You get those foofy frappuccinos with all the extra whipped cream and sweeteners and stuff. Sometimes those things push over 1,000 calories. And so everyone's all excited about the pumpkin spice lattes, and pretty soon it'll be the peppermint mochas, and they taste great, but just understand, one, a heck of a lot of calories in that kind of stuff. There's also chemicals in those things as well, as far as some of the sweetness and stuff that they use. So be aware of that. Um, Grains. So this is a thing that we talk about a lot. When we talk about normalizing weight, and I'll just say it that way, sugar and things that turn into sugar can really affect the body's ability to process the insulin, the body's ability to process the sugar, which then sets us up for weight issues. And so, really minimizing grains and really eliminating them. Now, this may not be a lifetime thing, but it can be a short term lifestyle thing. I want to point out I haven't used the word diet. Understand that the first three letters of the word diet spell that's not what we want in our consciousness. So we're really looking at making some lifestyle changes. Now, again, this list, 21 things, and then the stuff I'm going to add behind it, it's a lot of stuff. So I want you to pick the 2 or 3 things that you can add into your lifestyle now, and then start adding more and more steps. Uh, as always, I encourage you, go back, watch this workshop again, share it with your friends. It's going to be archived on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So please let other people know about this, and let's see how we can serve more folks. Beans, legumes, those are great. The big thing that we find for a lot of people is they just don't get a lot of vegetables. And so I really encourage people, let's try to eat more vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables. So many nutrients in that. I know it's hard for some of you to do that, so there are ways that we can work around that. But really, uh, fresh fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables, is key. Maybe a thing we'll talk about here with regards to fruits, number 8 here, and that is understand that not all fruits are created equal. Some have a really high sugar content, which is going to have a big impact on the body's insulin issues. They call it the glycemic index. So the higher the sugar content, the higher hit it's going to have on the body. So in this model, what we recommend is to minimize the sugary foods. So bananas are really high in sugar. Most apples, Granny Smith apples, tend to be low sugar, so those are good. But the things like the Fuji, the Honeycrisp, those have high sugar contents. Mangoes, papayas, also real high. Berries, those tend to be really good as far as sugar content. Now, that doesn't mean you get to eat as many as you want and you don't get to eat them all day. In fact, I really encourage you, try to minimize, if you do have fruits, minimize having them after lunch, because again, it's just lots of extra sugar, lots of carbs. And then when you do eat fruit, eat the whole thing. Um, Fruits are made, in my opinion, with the fiber and the sugar and the sweeteners and the taste to come together. If you take all the fiber out, then you don't have anything to buffer and balance all the sugar. And so really try to eat the whole thing. So when you're eating fruit juices or drinking fruit juices, especially if they've had all the pulp removed, then you're just basically doing a sugar bomb. So not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing to do for you, the best thing there. Fat is a thing that people tend to really overlook. We have been programmed since the 60s that, or even before that, that fat is bad. And we've been told that if you eat fat, you're going to get fat. And they were partly true when they said that if you eat bad fat, you can get fat. So vegetable oils, canola oils, sunflower oils, all those tend to be hard on the body to be able to process and digest. They mess up the way that the cell is able to suck in the nutrients and eliminate the waste products. So we start building up toxic cells in the body. And really, if you eat a healthy fat, that helps the body actually burn fat. So things like olive oils and canola oil, I'm sorry, strike that, olive oils, grapeseed oil, coconut oil, those are the healthy things. Again, make sure you're eating enough calories to get through the day. So don't skip the meals there. We're back to the fat scene here. Unsweetened cultured dairy, so things like kefir or yogurt. And again, source is critical if you're going to have dairy. So a lot of hormones and antibiotics sometimes are injected into the cattle. And so looking for things that have not been genetically modified, that do not have the hormones, do not have all the antibiotics, are really a better way to go. There are stores around Oregon that you can find that. If you're adventuresome, you can even find a non-homogenized milk. The homogenization process can actually uh, makes some of the milk sometimes more carcinogenic, cancer causing. And then if you're really adventuresome, I mean, realize for thousands of years, our ancestors have been drinking raw milk, whether it's from a cow or a goat. We don't really need a lot of it, but you can find it, not commercially. So you'd have to find a small farm that has just a couple cows. That takes a little bit more work. Um, some people are weirded out by that. I've had it, great stuff. Don't tend to drink a lot of milk because I find that I'm sensitive to it, and a lot of people are. But again, if that's going to be you, make sure you got some cultured. Again, the fermenting process that you get from making yogurt creates some enzymes that helps the body process that. Number 13, and nothing to be afraid of, but reading the labels is so critical. When we're able to go back into the stores as a group, we'll probably do a shopping tour at a couple of the local grocery stores. And what we're going to do is, one, talk to you or show you how we shop, number one, and then how we look at the labels. What is it that we're looking for? But you don't need me to tell you that right now. When you go to the grocery store, start reading things. And don't try to read everything that you buy on the first day when you go to the grocery store. Maybe spend a few minutes in one section and read some of the things that you're eating, and maybe look to see if you can make some better choices. We typically recommend when you go to the grocery store, start at the perimeter because that's where all the fresh foods are, and start in the produce section because that's what most of your cart should be anyway. Um, Processed foods, a lot of people feel that that's like the biggest issue that's really caused the decline of health in the United States, really since the turn of the last century. So in the early 1900s, when we started processing more of our foods, maybe more the third into the 30s and 40s, more processed food, really started seeing our health decline at that point. So I know it's difficult to try to cook perfect every day, and that's where a plan comes into place. I'm blessed that my wife loves to cook and she loves to plan, and so she'll make a menu for the week, and then just to be a little bit more transparent, we actually look at what our upcoming week looks like, so we know when we're going to be home or what meetings or commitments we might have. What's our weekend look like, and what's our day look like, and then we go, okay, we need these meals. So what food do we need to do these meals? And then she's made a list about, okay, so we get these things from this grocery store, we get these things from this grocery store, and then that just helps us be more consistent with what we're buying, and that way we don't go, oh, I'm not sure we're having, so we just buy all these things, and then we get home and we never eat it, or we find that all we bought was the sugary, carby, tasty things, but maybe had zero nutrition value. So again, we're buying the junk, not the food. So having a plan is going to be really helpful. If you want to get really, really fancy, what you can do is when you make your plan, again, this is something that my wife does, is that she'll plan a meal. So maybe we'll have chili on one night. Well, she'll double the batch, and knowing that that's the case, we can get maybe 3 or 4 meals out of it. So we'll have one meal that night, maybe another meal of it, and a couple nights later, she'll freeze the rest in a couple more meals, and now we have fast food, right? We know it's going to be a busy day. Take it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, get home at night, cook it up, we're good to go. And so those are some things that you can do. It's going to take some time. Now, understand, we've been working on this for, gosh, probably 15 years or more, so it's not going to be a simple thing. But I say that also, don't get discouraged that it's taken us 15 years. Start someplace, right? Write down a list of all the things you like to eat. And then find out, is there a way that you can make some of those things in more of a healthy manner? And then make a list. I've always threatened to actually get index cards with different colors. And on maybe the green cards, I'll write down the simple meals. A few ingredients, short prep time. On the yellow cards, maybe we put something that's a little bit more in depth. And maybe on the pink cards, maybe we like that, but it's going to take more time. And then if we get strapped for ideas, well, let's just pull a couple green cards, yellow card, and a pink card, and boom, there we go. We've got the meal plan for the week. And you can shuffle them up, or if you have a family, Johnny gets to pick one of these cards, and Cindy gets to pick one of those cards, and Dad gets one, and Mom gets one, and then boom, you're done. So again, I make it sound simple. Again, it's going to take some time, but I know you can do it. And the other thing too is, don't always eat until, well, one, don't eat so fast that you don't realize that you're full. So one, chew your food. Your body needs that process to help produce the enzymes to digest the food. But number two, if you eat so fast you don't realize you're full, then you're overeating. And so that's a critical thing that you really want to watch for is how much you're eating. Some people say that half of your plate should be vegetables, maybe a quarter protein, quarter carbs. So however you want to play that. Um, we eat salads more so in the spring and summer. We love to do that, and so that's always something to to do. In fact, we have a garden, and so literally, my wife buys some cutting lettuce and she puts it in the garden box and plants it, and then after a few weeks, she just cuts the top off and it grows back, and we cut the top off and it grows back. So it's kind of that perpetual thing. About midsummer, it starts to wear out, but she's planted a second patch, and so again, if you have kids, a fun thing to do for them as well. Sleeping is a really important thing for you. I guess I skipped number 18 here and 17. I'll come back to 17, but for 18, if you're struggling to figure out, how your body is processing the food, keep a log, keep a food log. Sleeping is a critical thing. What we're finding right now, especially with the whole pandemic thing, is that more and more and more people are coming in our doors stressed. The more stress a person has, the more cortisol they're going to produce, puts that body in that fight or flight. The body is more concerned with holding on to food to protect itself in case it needs to run even further from the tiger or whoever or whatever. And so, really making sure you get sleep helps the body reset. Exercise can do that as well. I love exercise. I always encourage people, at a minimum 3 times a week. If you can do 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes even 7. Mix up the type of exercise that you do. Going for a walk is always a good thing, but if you're always going for a walk the same distance over the same amount of time, your body adapts to that stress, and it really doesn't help you get out of it from a physiological standpoint, which you could. And so, mixing up the intensity, the speed. Maybe you don't like to walk, maybe you like to jog, or maybe you don't like to do that, but you wouldn't mind riding a stationary bicycle at home. Or maybe you don't like that either, but you'll do some calisthenics, some jumping jacks, and some push-ups or burpees. Do what you like to do. Don't think, well, I have to start running. Well, if you hate to run, that's a terrible idea. But find something that you like to do. A couple things that I personally do is you'll see here Max T3. So this is an online exercise resource. Um, I have a subscription to this. It's just a flat, I think, $20, and you can bring it up on your phone. I put it on my phone. In fact, I can mirror it to my TV downstairs in my workout area, and I have all different kinds of exercise I can do. There's 24 different workouts, as well as the explanation about how to do them. Some need more equipment than others. Some you don't need equipment for. Um, they're just a lot of fun. But the thing I really like about them most is that they're short. You don't need to work out at the gym for a couple hours to have good cardiovascular benefits, not to mention fat burning benefits. You'll find that these exercises all tend to run about 12 to 16 minutes. And so it's all about heart rate. And if you subscribe to this, it talks to you about what that's like. On the other side of the page there, you see Orange Theory Fitness. So when the gyms are open and the showers are working, I'd be there every week because I like, one, the camaraderie that you have there. But number two, they're always doing different kinds of exercises every single day, every day of the year, every year is a new exercise. And so this is literally from today. So you can actually go to the Orange Theory website. They have the at-home workout. You don't have to be a member. You click on it, and they'll walk you through some stuff. And you don't need a lot of equipment. You can get some water jugs and put more or less water in to be able to get different weight resistances. You can get exercise bands if you can find them. And so great things that you can do. Another strategy as we move into our holiday season is just, okay, so how do we process that? And I realize some of these may be a challenge just based on our current situation, but let's make the assumption that we will have some sort of interaction with people, even if it's on Zoom or even if we have just our immediate family together. But if you have an event, don't go hungry. So, if you're having it at your house, try to eat some healthy snacks beforehand. If you're going to someone else's house, maybe you have you and another family together. Focus on the vegetables first. Always go to the veggie tray. Have some carrot sticks or have some celery. Drink some water before you have any of the treats. Try to eat the the better protein and the better fat options before you indulge in the sweets. I mean, you look at that plate there, and it's just like you just want to reach out and have some, but don't try. Um, have a conversation if you're going with a friend or significant other, or even family. You know, make a plan together before you get there. Um, if it's a potluck and you're bringing something, bring something that you know is healthy that you'll eat. That always is a great way to go. When we would have potlucks at our church, we would always bring something that we knew would be good for our body and wouldn't make us feel terrible. And it's gotten to the point now where people are going, "What'd you bring? What do you have?" We want your thing first. And then also alcohol. Again, we're talking about drinking your calories earlier. Lots of calories in alcohol, so be aware of that. Now, I can't, as a chiropractor, have a discussion about health, whether it's obesity, diabetes, or anything, without talking about the nerves. We understand that within the brain is an innate intelligence or a wisdom that runs and controls every single aspect of our body. How we think, how we feel, how our body digests our food, how our muscles move, all require mental impulses that begin in the brain, travel down the spinal cord, and go across the nerves out to every single part of the body. And then that cycle is completed by the body then sending nerves back across those, or information back across those nerves up the spinal cord of the brain. So we have to have that loop of communication. Think of a safety pin where things go from the brain down to the body, back up to the brain. So brain, nerves, body, nerves, brain. Have to have that loop of communication. Well, what can happen is that we can get an interference where somehow that there's an or disruption there where the brain's trying to communicate to the body, but the body can't fully communicate to the brain. Or maybe the brain can't fully communicate to the body, but the body can still keep. So we don't get 100% communication. So we start losing the function of an area. It may result in pain. It can give us back pain, can give us headaches. It could also result in indigestion or heartburn or all kinds of issues. In the context of our discussion tonight, there's been some research that shows that even with type 1 diabetes, which we've always been told is insulin dependent, there's nothing you can do. And this isn't saying it's going away, but it can improve the function of the body if we improve the communication between the brain and the body. So, again, don't feel like only type 2 diabetics can benefit from chiropractic care. Again, if you have interference in your brain, your body communicating, this can be a problem. There is some research that's showing benefits with type 2 diabetes. And here's the thing that I like. I'm just going to go right to the punchline. Diabetes resolved as confirmed by the medical doctors 3 months after care. Now, that doesn't mean you go to a chiropractor 3 months, your diabetes is guaranteed to go away. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, to be honest, as a chiropractor, I don't specifically treat diabetes. What I do treat is that communication interference. And by removing that and giving the body enough good information, we can see a lot of things change. See, when we talk about nutrition, understand you can eat the best foods in the world. But if your body can't assimilate and absorb them, it's in one and out the other. Or maybe you exercise regularly. Maybe you're that 5 day a week person like clockwork. Every day you're up at 5 o'clock and you're at the gym or in your basement or in your living room doing those workouts. But if there's information communication breakdown, you might be building up abnormal muscle tone, which then causes nerve problems as well, which we may not feel. Understand when we look at the nervous system, there's three different components: muscle control, organ function, and pain. Well, sadly, most people focus on the pain. It can consume as much as 100% of our attention, but what we have to understand, it only makes up about 9% of the overall nervous system, which means we can have challenges in our muscle strength or our organ function and not necessarily feel it. A great example is, what does heart disease feel like? What does cancer feel like? As we mentioned before, 1 out of 4 people with type 2 diabetes have no clues because there's no specific symptom, at least in the early stages. And so rather than waiting till there is a symptom, we always encourage people, get your spine checked. If it's working well, great, now you know. But if it's not, let's make some corrections now before it becomes a problem. Now, one of the things that's different about our office is the way that we analyze and work with the spine. We do very specific spinal correction work in our office. And so when we do an evaluation, we're really looking at posture. We're looking at range of motion globally, as well as joint by joint. We look at the muscle tone. We look for areas of inflammation and swelling. And in some cases, we'll take x-rays and we're going to now look at the structure and the deep integral aspects of the posture of an individual. And then all the things that we do for a person to help them get well, whether it's them having exercises prescribed for them to do at home or warm-ups in the office. But most importantly, we're making very intentional, specific spinal corrections so the body works to the best of its God-given ability. Here's an example of one of our patients. This is Michelle. When she came in our office, she was obese, and she'll tell you that. So, in fact, you can see her pants there on the right side of the screen. Um, she also had type 2 diabetes, and she figured just from managing the diabetes and testing, medications, doctor visits, spending over $250 a month. And so, when she came into our office, we went through an evaluation and we did some x-rays for her. And I sat down with her and her husband, and she goes, this makes sense. She could understand and see how the brain and the body are connected, not only the diabetes, but she had some other health issues that we talked about too. But one of her concerns was, as a wife and mother of three children, that you know finances were a concern, as well as as a mom, she was an unpaid taxi driver, and so the timing was an issue. And so she chose not to do anything about it at that point. Well, sadly, as we know, with diabetes and obesity, one of the complicating components is heart disease. And that was the same for her. Within a couple weeks after that discussion she had in our office, she was in the emergency department having suffered a heart attack. And so she went, huh. She's still with us, by the way. But she asked herself, what is my health worth? What is my quality of life like? I mean, she spent thousands of dollars in the hospital for those few hours, and left with really no different answers. But by coming in at our office, I'm happy to tell you, after 6 weeks of care in the office, she lost about 40 pounds. In fact, her testimonial is on the wall in her office. Now, please understand, I don't have an adjustment or a correction for the spine that makes you lose weight, or all of a sudden your diabetes goes away. But again, by removing the nerve interference and allowing the body function to the best of its ability, that's what happened in Michelle's case. Such that at the end of a year or 6 months, she was off all of her medications. And so, again, clarification, disclaimer, individual results vary, but give the body enough information time, it's capable of doing some amazing things. So, how do you know if you have that nerve interference? Well, the body does give you clues in some cases. So, I'm not going to go through all these. You can read as well as I can talk to you about them. But if you have any concerns with regards to your health, I encourage you to get checked. Um, you don't always have to wait for a symptom. To me, the ideal patient is someone says, I don't have any health issues that I'm aware of, but I'd like to get checked to make sure I don't, and do what I can to prevent it from happening. That's really, to me, the one who's the most proactive of the health, and also is going to get the best results, frankly. Now, I do hear from other patients like, well, I don't have any health issues. I've got medication to take care of those. But I'm thinking, if you're taking the medication by default, you have health issues. Now, you might be helping to manage them with medication, but you still have the issue. So if your body can improve its overall function, now we have a different model for health and healing. And so I always like to give people that information. So if you are not currently a patient, at least in our office, I would like to give you an opportunity to help us, help others, and to help yourself. And so we are partnering up with the Emergency Pantry in Beaverton, where there are lots of people right now that are struggling, probably more so this year than any of the 29 years I've been in practice. And so what we're doing is we're asking you to help us help them. Bring in a bag of food, make a $40 donation that will go to the pantry. And these are actually resources that are going to be used for people that, maybe there's a mom that the boyfriend ends up having some sort of altercation and now he's not at home. And so here's mom and the kids. they're suffering. So this pantry is specifically to help them, or maybe there's a struggle here, and dad needs to get to a job interview. So maybe a bus pass. And so if you would help us help our community, if you've been doing okay during this pandemic time, and are in a position to be able to help other people, what a great opportunity to help those that are just really struggling at this time. Um, Also, if you're one that maybe having a tough time, this is a great opportunity to find out what's going in your body, for an easy way to do that. In fact, if you end up coming in the office and we do an examination and we find that maybe X-rays are necessary, I'll even cover half the cost of that. And so just know we're going to do everything we can to help you find out what's going on in your body, and then we're going to give you a plan to let you know what that's going to look like to help it get better. We don't have surprises here. So when we sit down and we go through your initial case history and review of your signs and symptoms, before we do anything, we're going to let you know what the cost is. And then after we've gathered all that information that first day, we're going to have you come back and we're going to review what we found. And then we're going to let you know what's the cost, how much is it, line by line all the way through, so there's no surprises. And then really, we're going to turn the decision over to you, because understand, it's your body, it's your money, it's your time. But know too, it's also your responsibility. And so we want to give you as much information and as many tools as possible to make an informed choice. So if you are seeing this video today, right now, I apologize, we're closed. Call, leave a message, and we'll get back to you first thing Monday. This offer is good for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, so the 23rd to the 25th, the 3 days right before Thanksgiving. If you are a patient, let a family member or a friend know about this, but you're still welcome to bring this in, again, to just help our community. Whew, a lot of information. So where do we go from here? Well, if you are not a patient and you would like to get checked, come in the office. If you are a patient and you saw some things tonight that maybe you could do differently, maybe you need to eat a few more vegetables. Maybe you need to get out and exercise a little bit more. If you're stuck at your laptop on your computer, or on your coffee table or your kitchen table, maybe it's time to get up every half hour. Whatever that is for you, please do that. Again, doing everything we just talked about all once is overwhelming. You'll get frustrated and you'll quit within 2 days if you make it that long. But if you can find 2 or 3 things that you can buy into, start those now and add another one in a month or 2 weeks. And it's the slow, steady increasing of the habits that's going to make the difference for you. With that, I'm going to sign off. I think we managed to make it through with the audio working well the whole time. I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. And as we move into the holiday season, I pray for health and wellness for all of you. And with that, take care and have a great evening.